1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're going to rock.
My guest today is Toni Williams. Welcome to the program, Toni.
Thank you very much.
It's been interesting over the years as we've touched base, as we've been at places like the Hermitage and different shows, and we playing music, and then suddenly Toni appears doing his singing and a bit of charisma. Tell me, where did you get started? How did you get started?
Well, I got started at a fairly early age, I suppose. Probably about 13 or 14. I had a hip injury and ended up in the Wilson Home for Crippled Children. And while I was there, I was in traction, so, Mum said, I'll bring you a ukulele, you can amuse yourself by playing that. So as the time went by, I sort of started playing uke and singing and things, so I had a captive audience, if you like, of other patients, and that's how I really started the music, but I didn't really think I'd carry on and become, as an entertainer.
The interesting thing is that even as a child, I can remember being given a ukulele, and the ukulele was a great start-off point because it only had 4 strings.
Yes, that's right.
And that gave you the music.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember my mother was a nurse at Sunnyside, and she had a friend of hers who was from the islands. After the ukulele, she gave me a guitar, and that's the interesting thing for me because, like you, it was our friends singing as families, singing together. Now, before we came on air, you mentioned the fact that you entertained all your relatives.
Well, yes, as I used to go to parties and things where all my rallies were. They had a party, they'd invite me along only because to sing, but I didn't mind, it was entertainment, and I suppose I built up a sort of a confidence in performing in front of people. That's how I think that's how you gain, by experience is how you gain that experience to be able to perform in front of people.
So you were the unpaid entertainer for the family at the time, were
yes, you? Very unpaid, yes.
And that gave you the experience. It's funny, Toni, we had some of the other entertainers on who started as ice cream boys at the movie theatres in town. So here you are, you're going through the progression of getting the guitar when you were sick, the ukulele, and trying to play it, and then picking it up and then getting better and progressing through to playing for family. So where did we go to from there?
Well, from there, when I got out of the home, starting my education, my school years. When I was at high school, I made friends with a fellow that we got on. We played football and stuff together. And I didn't really know that he had an interest in playing music until just by accident he said that he played guitar. And I said, oh, well, I play a little bit of guitar. So we sort of compared notes and thought, well, let's get together and see what we can do. But in those days, I never started singing really with him because we just played mostly instrumentals. He'd do a lead thing and I'd play rhythm and vice versa. And from there we started, that's how the music really started, I suppose.
And what music was it that you were listening to?
Well, we were listening to skiffle type things then because that was the music, freight train, things like that, And of course there was the instrumental things like guitar boogie.
And Lonnie Donegan stuff?
That was the one. That was the sort of songs.
Thinking of, does my chewing gum lose its flavour on the bedpost?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, that was the sort of stuff. And then we started up a group called the Housewarmers, strictly because why we called it the Housewarmers is that we used to go and do parties at housewarmings.
What a good idea.
And played for rallies, So, and we had, there was myself, Graham, who was my guitar player, but he had 2 cousins.
Graham who?
Graham Page.
Graham Page.
Yes. And he had 2 cousins, Ray and Doc, who we roped in to play the bass with the T-chest bass.
Oh, I remember those.
Because all you had to do was make a thumping noise. It didn't have to be in tune. It was just a rhythm thing,
That was the old days of the bass, the T-box chest.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And then Trevor, of course, played the brush board, the washboard with a wire brush.
Skiffle type board, yes.
Oh, yes, that comes back. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and so we used to do those sort of songs at parties and things like that. Once again, for nothing. It was just a fun thing.
And such entertainment, seeing all this stuff, isn't it? As well as the singing and everything.
And also, there were, in those days, of course, there was a lot of talent quests. And I suppose that's where we sort of started to make a name for ourselves. We started getting, winning and always getting in the top 3 a lot of talent quests. And of course, people used to go to those talent quests, a lot of people. And then you get recognised and known in a certain circle.
So what did it become? Toni Williams and the Housewarmers, and then moved up a bit further?
Well, but then when rock and roll came in, of course, that was Bill Haley, Rock Around the Clock. That was the first song that I'd heard that I thought, that's the beat,
That's the one.
And so we built the band up bigger. There were saxophones in the music, so we thought we got a sax in, do the little bro. So we ended up with a 6-7 piece band.
Of course, that was quite big then too, wasn't it? What a great sound, full sound it must have been for you.
It was a good sound, and even when we started off, we did a lot of covers. A lot of people did covers.
That's right. You had to survive by doing covers.
But we tried to perfect those covers as best we could, so we'd concentrate on getting as near a sound as we could to the original.
How did you become professional? How did you get paid?
Well, we started off, once again, it was a dance, a place called the Gandhi Hall in Auckland. And there was myself with the tremolos. Around the corner, there was the Carlisles at the Trades Hall. Then there were other bands.
So there'd be Hermikyle,
yes.
And then it was Toni Williams and the band changed to the Tremolos.
Tremolos, yeah, around the corner. And to stop clashing on the same nights, time-wise, they'd have their dance from 8 till midnight. On a Friday, we'd start our dance from midnight till 4 in the morning.
My goodness, in those days.
So the crowd used to just go from one place around to the other one, other than competing, and that's how we used to do it. We all got on brilliantly. Except I drew the short straw that keen to play from midnight till 4 in the morning.
You were keen.
But however, that's how we started off. We were there for about 3 or 4 years, working that same place. So yes.
Now you were playing bands up in Auckland. How did you make the transition down to Christchurch?
Well, in those days we did a lot of Miss New Zealand tours in the later years, and the Tremolos backed the first Howard Morrison tour in 1960, and we toured Howard Morrison Quartet. Then I had the band. There was John Daly, he was out at the compere. Rama White was one of the acts on.
Did you go through Christchurch?
Yes, many times.
Yes, because you turned up at the Coppercat, all of you.
Yes, we used to be on the tour at the time, so we'd all turn up there.
Yes.
So we'd go to whatever was happening in the city or town, we'd go after the show. And so we did that, what meant to be about a 6-week tour, ended up about 21 weeks altogether.
Gosh, that's a long tour.
Long tour. And then when we finished that, the band they had girlfriends and things, and they wanted to get married, etc. So the band, we disbanded. I wanted to carry on, so I was still single, so I had no sort of ties.
You mentioned the Miss New Zealand tour.
There were several New Zealand tours. There was sort of a lull in between each one. Sometimes 12 months or 2 years, and then there'd be another one. So the one that I met Helen, my wife, in was 1964.
Now that brings back a memory to me too, that if I remember, Helen Ego from Ego's Chemists?
Yes.
And she won the Miss Canterbury beauty contest, is that right?
Yes, she was Miss Canterbury that year.
That's right, because she and her friends used to come up to the Copper Cat, and we followed where she went and then got up attached with you and followed where that went. You know?
See, they used to go to do the rounds of all the places in Christchurch and clubs and that and dances.
Top of the House and Max Merritt and
Bobby Davis.
Bobby
Davis,
and the
yes.
Dazzlers.
Yes, Bobby Davis and the Dazzlers at the top of the house. And
Ray Columbus and the Invaders.
And now one at the Copper Cat, Dion and the Shamrocks.
Yes.
That was an old one.
They were good, there's sort of showing there's nothing like that now.
No, that's the sad part about it.
Yeah.
Changing times, I guess, Tony. It might come back, who knows?
Yes.
Now, I didn't want to stop your little story as you were running through. We got you down as a single person, decided to move around.
Yes, well, I came... Then when I went back to do the Miss New Zealand tours, I was a solo act then, so I was a supporting act. Once again, usually it was with the Howard Morrison Quartet. And that's how I met Helen, 1964, and from there things grew. We went on, got married in 1965.
And family?
Yes, we have 2 girls.
That's wonderful.
Well, grown-up girls now, of course.
Grandchildren?
Yes, 3 boys.
That's wonderful.
3 grandsons.
And is there any music showing up?
Yes. yes. Both my girls were musical, but they didn't pursue it as a career. But they both play guitar, they both sing, and I have actually had them singing with me at different places.
Oh, that'd be good.
It gives a lot of joy.
Yeah, and
Yes.
the boys are a bit young yet, but I think they probably do.
They're showing a little bit of granddad.
The old feet tapping and things,
Yeah,
So
they got the talent coming
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
I think. Good stuff.
Looking back on your life there, Tony, there must be some really amazing high points. Can you share some of those with us?
Yes, I can. I did a lot of television while I was in Australia. I did the Brian Henderson show. I was almost
That was quite a big show. Is that the bandstand one?
Yes,
or something, is
bandstand.
it?
I was almost a regular on that. And also at the time there was 6 o'clock rock, which was Johnny O'Keefe's show.
Johnny O'Keefe.
Listen to Lynn Campbell talking that Johnny O'Keefe was known as the Wild One.
Yes. Yes.
Is that your
Was he?
impression? Was
No,
he?
well, he was. But him and I got on really well with John. He used to call me Antoine. I said, hey, what's this Antoine business? But we always had good rapport between the two of us. It was
Sure.
never. But with other people and things, he was a bit touchy, yes, especially with the media. And
Right.
that, And we did. I used to do all the 6 o'clock rocks shows. They were, real rock and roll.
They were very
stuff, yeah.
big in those
Yes.
bandstand and the Johnny O'Keefe show, 6 o'clock. That was
That's
quite
right.
big.
Yeah.
And I can see why you were saying that.
Yeah, and that's where I met the Bee Gees. They weren't the Bee Gees then. They were working on Johnny's show.
Oh,
the
that
three of
must have
them.
been early, yes.
They were only little guys, They'd
Yes.
only just started off, but you could tell even at that stage
Something
there
was
was a
there.
talent there,
Yes.
And then I suppose living in Australia, I did a lot of the clubs because I had to leave here. There was not enough work here. If I wanted to be a full-time musician, or entertainer, I couldn't do it here. So I went over there and did all the clubs. But, well, it's a business over there. As you've been there, Dion, you know what
yes.
it's like. There's so many clubs and things. You could work every night of the week.
Yes, it's
Even though it's
population
changed now, even that scene sort of has
died off.
changed, yes. But one of the highlights, I suppose, was when I came back in 1964, actually. I did a sort of the opera thing with Inia Tiwiata with Porgy and Bess.
He had a magnificent voice, that man.
Yes, and
Old Man River.
yep.
Wasn't
So
he
you
great?
were in that. and
I
you-
was in that show as Sporting Life. I did the
Oh,
part of
Sporting
Sporting Life
Life.
with as the bits part that Davis took.
Well,
on
I
the
must
show.
say it probably suited you, Tony.
So we toured for 6 months with that tour. 6 months here and 6 months in Australia.
Oh, marvellous. That's
And that-
quite a long time,
A
too.
long tour, yes. And that was a different type of singing then. We had reinforced mics along the front of the stage, but you really had to belt out for anybody to hear you, So
that was real
another
singing.
experience, yeah.
Projection.
Projection of your
Projecting the
voice.
voice and things. So that was a really good
Boost for
boost
your
in
singing?
my career.
Yes,
6
I can
months
imagine.
is a
Another
long time
highlight,
to
yes.
be. Is a long time to be singing together. Any sort of difficulties with mixing with everybody?
No,
at
well,
that
I
time?
think the thing was that during the day we didn't mix much. We
Went
sort
your
of
own
went
ways.
our own ways.
That's
And we only came together during the shows at night, and not all the time, but social functions we'd go to. But I think that kept it fresh.
There'd be
Yes.
tremendous feeling in the emotion in the actual show, though, wouldn't it? That would
Oh,
carry you through. And
Yes, yeah, there was a big cast, about 57 of us, so that was a big show.
That's a big show.
And it's the first show that was ever done by a cast outside of the Black Americans, because
Right.
they had the copyright. Nobody was allowed to perform that. But it was all Maori cast, bar one, who was a policeman in the actual show. And the producer from the States came over. She was another story. I mean, they don't muck around those guys.
Yes, it's interesting.
She had the girls in tears and
hard
They're tough, aren't they?
taskmasters.
They're really tough,
But
aren't
they
they?
get the result, don't
they get the result, and she said, this is how you have to do it because this is the way they did it.
Yes.
That's the times, and so.
That would have been a great learning curve for
Oh,
you.
yeah,
then, wouldn't it?
absolutely.
Dion's
Absolutely.
mother used to produce these amazing ballets. She had about 300 or 400 kids in a ballet school, and we had the same thing because we were always dragged in, and there would be tears. But on the
Yes.
night, everything comes right.
That's
on
right,
the
it
night.
does.
Wonderful stuff.
And that was one of the highlights. And one other one was I did a television show for UNICEF. And that was done at the hotel's gone now.
Was it Australia, was it?
Yes, it
Right.
was
In Sydney.
in Sydney.
In Sydney, yeah.
Silver Spade Room was the name of the thing, and they had this UNICEF show on. I only did one song, but there was myself, Dinah Shaw, and Eddie
You're talking
Albert.
big company there.
You know,
Yes.
big.
Big
I
names.
was like a fish out of water type. What am I?
Well, isn't it marvellous to
Yeah.
say that you've been in on the stage
Yes.
and on show and starred and with them? That's
And
wonderful.
it was shown worldwide. You know, I don't know whether I think it came here, but whether anybody saw it. But it was for UNICEF.
What year was this?
68, perhaps.
So that was a big achievement to get onto a show like that at that
Yes.
stage, because television was still quite in its infancy.
I did one song, and the one I chose was that I Can't Stop Loving You, the old
Yes.
Ray Charles thing. And, you know, when you have a 30-piece orchestra playing, I thought, ooh.
This is the moment.
This is it. But it went off okay. So I had some good comments from both of them. So I've always...
Treasured the
treasured
moment.
that
What a
moment, yeah.
wonderful moment that was.
Yes,
It's
it
nice
was.
to have that.
that was one of the highlights of my career, was that particular show that night.
It would be hard to top it.
Well, I haven't been able to top it since then.
I mean, that's wonderful. Dinah
Yes, yeah.
Shaw and
Yes, you've certainly kept some wonderful company with those names, and it's been interesting because I found a wealth of talent here in Christchurch
Yes.
with the entertainers and musicians who are resident here now, and they're hidden. All their achievements are hidden. And
Yes.
it's great to be able to celebrate with you all these achievements that you've had.
Yes, my parents kept a lot of scrapbooks and things, which I have now, you know, and I look back over them and I think, gee. And I've got all the programs.
did I do this?
Yes.
Did I really get there with it? Were
Yeah.
they really with me? I can imagine that, Tony.
And I got photos, because I used to do a lot of support work with the likes of Connie Francis, Bobby Rydell, Del Shannon. I've got the photos at home. I always treasure those because
yes, you can't lose
you
those.
can't lose those. And I know because they are actually the programs of the show. So they're not sort of people can say, oh, yeah, you probably superimpose that or something on it, but it's not. It's a program
That's right.
for the thing. And I know because I have them, you know. So
Yes.
I work with a lot of the overseas acts that used to come around.
So what a
Come
wonderful
tour.
career you've had. You
Yes.
must have a lot of joy and a lot of pride. And when you look at those photos and you look back at some of those records and the songs that you sung and the people that you sung with,
Yes.
it's really magnificent.
No, it's a lot of memories. And also in New Zealand, there's a lot of talent. You know, the likes I've worked with probably all of the entertainers in New Zealand, with yourself, Dion, and Ray
Cecile.
Columbus, Ray Wolf, all those guys. We've come together at some stage, either, whether it be a live show or television
That's
show or
right.
something like that, you know, so it's,
It's great.
yeah.
Well, I keep mentioning that we want to have a celebration in February, March next year, 2007.
Yes.
50 years of rock and roll in
Yes,
Canterbury.
and we want to invite you to be part of that because you're really much a part of the scene of the 60s or 70s, the 50s. It's something that perhaps you might be able to share some of those photos and we'll get them produced and so
Absolutely,
everyone
and
can see them.
I'd be delighted to come on board for sure.
What are you intending to do today? Still singing?
Today, no, I'm not. This year I took the rest of the year off, so
That'd be the first spell for a long time.
for a long time, yes,
Well,
and doing bits and pieces around the place, and my daughter's place is just around the corner. So yeah, I keep occupied, but I also have a business that my
Corporate
wife and
Direct
I,
Wines?
yes, that we run from home. So that's another
Wonderful.
interest that we have.
Tony, we call the program 50 Plus and Loving It. Are you 50 plus and loving it?
Oh yes, absolutely.
For those of you who've just joined us, we've been talking with Toni Williams, one of the greats in the music scene here in New Zealand and especially in Christchurch, and he lives here, and we're really happy that you shared with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
you.
Tony.
So long, that's all.